And we're live.
All right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages.
How y'all doing?
Welcome to the Musha Show.
Yeah.
And this is our first episode.
Episode 1 of the Musha Show.
Episode 1. And for this episode, we're going to be reviewing UFC 235. Mm-hmm. So this will be the post-fight show. And we're just going to be covering the main card. And my guest and co-host is the very talented Mr. Bushido Robinson. Thank you for doing it again.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
So I think before we kind of get into the card and everything like that, we just do like a little bit of a backstory, a little bit of an introduction to your two like hosts, myself and Lou, because you might be thinking, well, who are these two guys talking about UFC and what qualifications do they have?
Absolutely. So yeah,
why should
I'm Luke Robinson, aka Bushido Robinson, but you haven't introduced yourself.
Yes, my name is Craig Lobo.
Craig Lobo.
Yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Maybe you should be the host and I should be the co-host.
You should be the co? I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So, I'll let Mr. Luke go first.
Absolutely. So, I'm a martial artist. I'm a traditional martial artist. I practice Taijutsu. I also still practice Taekwondo, but not in a sports sense, not in the way that most people practice Taekwondo in the dojo. So I started when I was 5 years old. That was traditional Taekwondo, ITF. My father practiced Taekwondo way back in the day in England, and he practiced a very, very old school style of Taekwondo called Chungdo Kwan. And anybody who knows anything about the history of Taekwondo, go and look up Chungdo Kwan, because that's some real old school stuff. So I practiced Taekwondo for my whole entire life. And I met a good friend of mine when I was about 17 years old in high school. And he practiced Taijutsu. Now, it was like completely contrast to what I learned from Taekwondo, but there were some similarities like in the stances. Like Taijutsu has some stances that Taekwondo has very, very similar ones to in their patterns. But Taekwondo doesn't use the stances from the patterns for their sparring or their fighting applications. So I was looking at it like, hey, if this guy has the same stances that I have, but he's using them to fight, and when I go to fight, I throw my stances out the window, hey, maybe I should take a look at this and see if I can use my stances in the same way. So that was kind of like the catalyst that got me involved with Taijutsu, and I've been practicing that for the past 10 years. I haven't actually taken count for the last little while, but it's about 10 years that I've been practicing that, and so I'm a traditional martial artist at heart.
And we actually have one of your training videos, because you also teach as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is footage from a demonstration that I gave a couple years back at a tournament. I was very, very, very honored to be invited to this tournament, and it's just a short clip about me explaining how I use my stances differently than how I was taught. So yeah, take a look.
I have a different rendition that is very similar, but I use stance. Transitioning from stance. So from here, I step forward into my walking stance, keeping my hand up to guard. I rotate into Jumbi, ready stance. And very simply from here, slide into knife hand, sitting stance, knife hand strike. From there. You want to show off the motion? Sure. What is me? From here, step forward, rotate. Escapes or wrist grab.
If you want to check out kind of more of Luke's background in martial arts or anything like that, you can go to his Instagram, which is...
That's at Mr._Luke_Robinson.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So yeah, what I was doing there was I was just kind of explaining. There's a lot of patterns that you'll see in Taekwondo that finish with a sitting stance knife hand strike, which is the technique that I applied in this. And if you watch Taekwondo sparring, you would never think that that's a technique that you can apply realistically. So I just wanted to kind of show and give context as to how the techniques that we practice in our patterns can actually be used really quite realistically. You know what I mean? So
practical application
of traditional movements. Yeah, absolutely.
And although I don't have as extensive of a background as you, I did also train in martial arts when I was younger. I started at the age of 10, and I trained for 4 years. I trained in karate. It's traditional karate, so it has all the katas.
Absolutely.
And then we also did. Okay, so Mr. Edgar here's going to throw up a couple of shots. So I went all the way up to brown belt level 2, which is one level away from black. So you go level 1 brown, and then it'd be the black belt.
Awesome.
So that's me getting my second brown belt. And
so when are you going back to get your black belt? So what do you remember what style of karate was? Because there's so many different styles of karate. There's so many different ryus, right?
So this is the kind of like the point style. So it involves just being very light on your feet, hopping in and out, striking quickly, and then getting out of range so that you can't get hit.
Perhaps Shotokan?
It's actually very similar to the type of karate that Wonder Boy practices, Stephen Wonder Boy Thompson. So they essentially what I was taught, and it's kind of followed me over the last couple of years because while I trained in this when I was younger, more recently, rather than going back to karate, I picked up boxing over the last 2 years, and I've been training in that. So I found that, as you found, when you have a base in traditional martial arts, you'll bring it to any type of other combat sports that you pick up.
Absolutely.
So when I box, I'm very light on my feet. I'll just try to get in and out, very stick to the basics, jab, combinations. And so just with both of us having that kind of background and being really into martial arts and also following a lot of the like UFC, Bellator, ONE, all these things on a regular basis, we felt like we could bring some of our insights into some of these cards, and that's how this show came about. It is me reaching out to Luke saying, we sure as hell have a pretty good understanding of these fights and kind of see a lot of things that other people don't. Especially for myself, I know when I'm watching certain fights, I'll see someone throw a head kick. Right? Or I'll see someone drop their hand kind of low and their head's kind of open, and then they have the opening for a head kick. And,
so you just see things that other people who don't train, they don't see.
Right. Especially because when you're practicing, when you're fighting someone in karate or in taekwondo or boxing, you have to look for those openings.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You have to see, you do a bit of kind of feeling out process. You'll throw a couple of jabs, you'll figure out your distance.
You'll feint your opponent.
You'll feint, right. But, you'll gauge their speed so you can get out of the way. But at the same time, you notice this person doesn't move, very well. Or maybe they're moving to my power side. I could throw my right hand. Maybe they're moving towards my left. I need to jab so that I can get them moving to my power side.
Pick up those subtle nuances of the fight, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so this is why I felt like we'd have some kind of useful insights.
Well, it's definitely going to be really interesting because I started watching the UFC like late 90s, early 2000s, and it was a short stint, you know what I mean? Like, it was back when it was guys like Don Fry and
Dan Severn
and
Horace Gracie.
Yeah, Horace Gracie, absolutely. Big Daddy Goodrich, you know what I mean?
Ken Shamrock.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? There's these old school kind of pioneers of the octagon, and so when it stopped being kind of style versus style, it's kind of when it lost its luster for me, and I kind of backburned it for a while.
Right.
I'll still watch the odd UFC fight and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But it's not. For me back then, it was really exciting because I was really watching style versus style. Who could use their style better? Not necessarily what style was better, because that's often how it's framed, but who could use their style better?
Right. Who could implement their game plan?
100%.
And that's what it is even today.
That's what a style is. A style is a game plan.
Right. But it's just gotten a little more complex now because now everyone is not just proficient in one style, they're proficient in all of them. So whereas you and me, from our backgrounds would be more proficient in stand-up, in striking, someone who's into wrestling or jiu-jitsu, they could take you down and completely negate all of your weapons, right? Exactly. So now everyone is familiar with wrestling. Everyone is familiar with boxing. Everyone's familiar with Taekwondo or karate or, you know, whatever it is. They bring their specialties into it, but they're very well-rounded, which makes it more competitive.
I think it's really cool to still see traditional martial arts in the octagon.
And there still are. I mean, like Wonder Boy Thompson's a great example, right? He is that's his thing. He's so good at karate and so good at coming in and out like a lightning bolt and just striking you that people find it really hard to hit him back, to stop his attacks. That's why he's, you know, done as well as he has. But he's a specialist.
Absolutely.
Right? And those are rare because what happens with Wonder Boy is you be great at stand-up, right? And you're just wiping people out until you come up against a wrestler who can also strike, like Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
And then what does he do? He takes him down.
Yeah.
And
Your element, right?
and he's negated all of his weapons, right? If you can't wrestle on the ground, you're at a significant disadvantage.
Well, I mean, that's part of the whole entire game plan. I mean, you have to. It's you got to be able to move within the confines of the sport. You know what I mean? Like you can be taken to the ground, so you better have a good ground game or great ground defense or great takedown defense.
I think that's just my argument, though, as to why we don't see more specialists. It's because that has kind of gone away. That's my argument. Is that
you need to be a jack of all trades.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like being a specialist is not going to, you know, lift you up all the way, because you're going to encounter these people that will be able to do what you can do. Maybe not as well as you, but enough.
As well as.
But enough to defend your attacks. And then they have all these other tools that you don't, right?
Stuff,
And that's where they win the fight.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
But anyway, I feel like that. The specialist discussion would be a really nice way to get into UFC 235.
100%.
And one of my favorite fights, and we're just going to be discussing the main card for 235.
Okay.
So we'll get into the specialist of all specialists, Mr. Ben Askren, who made his UFC debut. Undefeated.
Funny guy.
Undefeated for the longest time, former Bellator champion, went over to one, fought for years there. And, you know, he made his debut against Robbie Lawler, who is no slouch. No slouch.
No, he's got a great reputation.
He's got a great wrestling background. Just scary striker, former champion. So this was a really good test.
He's been there for a long time. He's a veteran as well. You know what I mean? He's not new to the game.
Right. And as you all know by now, Ben Askren won that fight controversially, very controversially. And I think what we're going to do is, because for me, you know, we're not. I don't want to get into too much. Like, it's been analyzed to death. The arm up, the arm down. You know, was he out? Was he not? Was it a good stoppage? Bad stoppage? I'm going to very briefly kind of cover what I thought of the fight, but then what I want to talk about is, for me. So I thought, watching it, I thought Ben Askren was out. First off, when Lawler got a hold of him,
So he dumped him on his head.
I dumped him on his head and was pounding him. I thought, this fight's over.
Yeah.
For him to survive that and come back and get in the position that he did to choke Lawler, that was amazing in and of itself.
Absolutely.
That showed some.
Says a lot about his heart. And he mentioned that later.
Yes, he has real guts, and that was impressive for me. And to be fair, whether or not Lawler was completely out on the choke, the one thing is that there was 2 minutes left in that round, and he had him. He had him in there for what, a couple of seconds, and it was already close, right?
Yeah.
I don't see Lawler being able to get out of that and survive for another 2 minutes if he was in that much trouble where he was. And I don't see Askren, with the power that he has, the specialty that he has, and that grip, letting go anytime soon. So I think that fight was over. If not when it happened, it was going to be over pretty soon.
From that perspective, I'd agree. I'd say, if there's 2 minutes left in that round, and he's got a good choke around. They were saying it was across his jaw. It wasn't necessarily across his neck, so it wasn't hurting as much.
The blood choke.
Right.
Right.
Like you're saying, the hand went limp. That's what I saw. I was like, but split second after he was released, he was up, and so that's where the controversy is. I can't call it. I wasn't there, but I think, what I'm going to say, kudos to Robbie Lawler just for being such a sportsman about it. You know what I mean? Like, literally, it was a split second of frustration, and then he conceded. He said, you know what? You're doing your job.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think, in the way that this is a sport, that showed a lot of real sportsmanship. You know what I mean? So, I mean,
handled it the way a true martial artist would.
Absolutely.
With respect,
composure.
With respect, I mean? Yes, and humility.
Win or lose with grace.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, but the fight, I'm with you to say I thought that Ben was in a lot of trouble when he got dumped on his head. Robbie Lawler just went like a pit bull, just went for him, bam, 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 and Ben said later on, he showed that he's technically good, but he also said, I showed a little bit of toughness.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
more than a little.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So kudos to him for that. I think that he really, really did that. And he was much calmer speaking afterwards than he was before, as one might expect. But kudos to him too as well, because he did really, really well.
Right. And I am not interested in seeing a rematch. I know that the UFC is really pushing for it. Mm-hmm. They felt the fight didn't end the way it should have, with a clear winner, with the controversy. But I think that fight, as I said before, was over sooner than later.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that fight again. I don't think either of their stocks took a hit.
Yeah.
I think Lawler looked amazing, looked better than he did against Dos Anjos when he fought him last. Mm-hmm. When he wasn't healthy, he looked terrific here. And Askren looked great too.
Yeah.
And I would like to see, Askren says he wants to fight the winner of Till Masvidal. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I would love to see that next.
That'd be a good matchup for them.
I think either fight would be great, because Till is such a great striker, and they've been talking so much shit to each other that I think that would be
that's one thing that Ben's really good for.
The lead up to that fight would be insane. The lead up to that fight would be crazy. And I think, just given the current environment of the UFC and how they love trash talking, you're not going to get any better trash talking than Ben Askren versus Darren Till. So I think that'd be a great fight.
That would be an exciting matchup leading up.
That'd be a great matchup, because that's the specialist, right?
Yeah.
Askren being the wrestler versus Darren Till being the striker, right? And that's who knows what's going to happen, right? So I think that's the fight. No. I think if Till gets by Masvidal, which I think he should.
Yeah.
I think he should. Yeah. I think that's the next fight I want to see.
When's that fight coming up?
That is in 2 weeks, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but
talk about that.
Perhaps later. But so to me, that's the next fight I want to see. And Robbie Lawler, hell, there's so many options for that guy.
Yeah.
Give him someone. Give him someone in the. I mean, hey, look, Woodley lost.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to get to that, but Woodley lost. And Woodley really, before Woodley was a champ, Lawler was a champ. Right? So Woodley coming off a loss, and that fight was very quick.
Now, I want to touch on that. Did Lawler win it, or did Woodley win it from Lawler?
Yes, he beat Lawler.
Yeah,
it was first round knockout. But it was very quick.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't mind seeing that fight again.
I think that would be a better matchup than Ben Askren again.
Right. So for me, that's my thoughts on Askren Lawler.
Fully.
I want to touch on very quickly my second favorite fight of the card, which is Cody Garbrandt versus Pedro Munoz.
That was a war.
What a wild fight. That was insane.
It was.
And Cody Garbrandt, I mean, this guy, going in, he was favored to win the fight. Former champ, beat Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, but he was explosive. He was. I mean, he was explosive.
He was. He was looking good at the beginning, right? But, what I want to get to, and this is what happened with him and Dillashaw, right? That's how he lost the belt. He got over emotional and tried to trade with TJ, and TJ caught him and dropped him twice. Yeah. Not once, twice, right? And you'd think he would have learned from that, but he didn't. So we all know he's an emotional fighter, and it looks like he doesn't have a great chin either, because he's been dropped 3 times now.
Yeah.
And these are 35ers.
But when you get put down once, it's easier the second time. When you get put down the second time, it's easier third and fourth.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
right. But it's just like someone who's that young, who's only had 10 professional fights prior to fighting for the belt and then fighting Dillashaw.
Yeah.
This guy has no damage. He shouldn't be getting dropped like that.
Yeah.
Right? You look at someone like Robbie Lawler, who's been fighting for 15, 20 years, and the guy can still take a punch, right? Well, Lawler's fighting at welterweight. He's getting hit by some big guys. Garbrandt's fighting at 35.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be getting dropped like that.
That's fair.
He shouldn't. I mean, he's not getting hit by John Lineker. He's getting hit by Dillashaw, and Dillashaw hasn't really been known as like a knockout artist.
Yeah.
Neither has Munoz. So I think Garbrandt has two problems. One, he's got to stop fighting emotionally, which is the obvious thing. But
I think saying that goes back to style, right? Like, now that we were saying that, the style is kind of amalgamated. Well, I guess that boils down to your own personal style. You know what I mean? Game plan. What have you and your team come up with for this specific fight?
Right.
And then you can't get drawn away from that. You know what I mean? You can't let your emotions get involved.
Right. But that's what happens to him all the time. It seems like the last couple of fights, right? So for me, I think Garbrandt, this guy's been knocked out 3 times in the last 2 years. And they're bad knockouts.
Yeah.
He's got to take some time off. I would like to see him, I think Matt Serra was saying see a sports psychologist, or Ray Longo, he needs to see a sports psychologist. I think that'd be a great idea. Someone that can just reset him. Fighting is all mental.
Absolutely.
Fighting is all mental, and he's not there right now. I don't want to see him fight anytime soon. I really think he needs to kind of take a break, regroup, and come back when he's kind of exercised some of those demons that he's clearly still struggling with. But everyone's
sound advice.
Everyone's talking about Garbrandt though. But what I want to talk about is Pedro Munoz. This guy was ranked number 8. He came out of nowhere. Maybe not nowhere, but he wasn't contending for a championship anytime soon.
Right. And
he just beat the former champ decisively in the first round.
Yeah.
No one's talking about Pedro Munoz, and they should be. This guy needs this guy's next fight.
Well, I mean, he needs some notoriety, right?
If his next fight isn't for, he just beat the former champ.
Yeah.
Dillashaw, is going to fight. It looks like he's going to fight Cejudo, probably with a rematch. So it doesn't look like he's free. And Marlon Moraes is just sitting around waiting. Who else has had a more clear victory at 135? Over a significant opponent, the former champion.
So who would you like to see Pedro up against?
I think if they're going to do Dillashaw versus Cejudo, I think Munoz should fight Moraes, because he's not fighting anyone, right? Unless Moraes wants to sit out, and if he's going to sit out, who's next? Well, Dominic Cruz is injured. He just beat Garbrandt. Who's next? Jimmy Rivera, right? Jimmy Rivera is maybe ranked number 4 or 5. Or maybe Aljamain Sterling, because Aljamain Sterling just beat Jimmy Rivera.
You're saying that Pedro Munoz came in at 8.
8.
Now, what has fighting Cody Garbrandt done for his standings?
Well, Cody Garbrandt is ranked number 2.
Right, because he was.
So he just beat the number 2 guy in the world,
right.
Former champ.
Yeah.
And number 1 is Marlon Moraes. So if he's not going to fight Moraes, which Moraes wants a title shot, he's going to wait. I think Munoz should fight Aljamain Sterling next. And then
Sterling's, where is he sitting in the?
I believe Sterling's ranked around number 5 or 4.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that'd be a great fight.
Yeah.
They're both coming off wins, and I think the winner of that could potentially very easily challenge for the title next. If Moraes gets the next shot, which he should, he's just been on a tear. If Moraes gets the next shot, I think the winner of Sterling and Munoz should be next in line.
I think that's fair.
Right?
Okay.
Because
steps, but there would be big accomplishments anyways. You know what I mean?
Sterling's win was not as decisive. He won a decision over Jimmy Rivera, who's ranked number 4. Munoz just knocked out the number 2 ranked guy who's a champ. I think he's ahead of Sterling.
That's a big deal.
Right? So, but I just think...
Because the knockout is, I mean...
Yeah, look at that. So right now, to the updated standings, Sterling's ranked 3rd and Munoz is 4th. Those two got to fight. I mean, Asensio, sure, you could find... Asensio just... He always seems to be getting looked over, but I really think Sterling and Munoz is the next fight. What were your thoughts about that fight?
Well, which one? Sorry.
Garbrandt? Yeah, Garbrandt and Munoz.
I thought that was a war. I thought it was. I mean, it was short, but it was a very, very exciting fight. Cody was coming with a bear paw, just hooking every chance he got. Multiple really explosive flying knees.
I really thought, that just shows Munoz's chin, man. That guy's a granite chin.
Entire brain.
Because Garbrandt dropped some really good guys with his power, and Munoz took it, and he took the knees, and he came.
I think there was 3.
I think that's...
There's definitely at least 2.
There was definitely at least 2.
You know what I mean? But that's what I mean. You have somebody jump up and hit you with their knee. That's a big deal. Especially when they're pulling. You know what I mean? He had him in the clinch.
For sure.
He had him from the clinch, and he jumped up, and I thought I was really impressed by that. But, I mean, the knee was impressive. But like you said, the chin of Munoz is really, really impressive. But, yeah, there was... a lot of good kicking going on. You know what I mean? Leg kicks. I can't remember who threw the backside kick. I really liked that one. There was a couple more of those later on in the card. But it was Munoz's backside kick. Yeah. You know what I mean? So me being a traditionalist, I like to see some traditional taekwondo kicks and all that kind of stuff. So
you popped for that one.
Yeah. You know. But like both guys came out and they just came out wailing and they were relentless.
Well, they didn't come out wailing.
No,
they
but
came out technically. Yeah. But then once Garbrandt got dropped, once Garbrandt got dropped, and he got up in like just revenge mode, then they started trading.
Then exactly. You know what I mean? But
that was a great fight.
A war.
That was a great fight.
It was very exciting. You know what I mean?
So Pedro Munoz to me coming out of it, one of the biggest winners of that card. And then we're going to talk about... I want to move to the next big winner on that card, who I'm not sold on, Mr. Kumaru Snoozman.
Oh, wow.
You know what?
This, the shade.
You know what?
Jeez.
You know what? Okay, I'll say this, right?
Speak.
I'll say this. So first off, Tyron Woodley was the favorite there. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people expected Usman to win.
No.
So I'll give him props for that. I will give him his credit.
That's it? That's all? You watched the fight, right?
No, hold on.
Okay.
What I saw... Mm-hmm. See, here's the thing. First off, I don't think he fought the best Tyron Woodley. He didn't.
No, absolutely, yeah.
He did not.
100%.
He did not look like himself.
100%.
But, and again, I people talk about... people give Tyron Woodley a hard time. Mm-hmm. Other than his last fight where he knocked out Darren Till, the 3 fights before, what did they say about him? He's boring. Mm. He just, he wrestles. He holds... Yeah, he waits. This and that. I'm sorry. What did Usman do for 25 minutes on Saturday night? He outbored Tyron Woodley. I'm sorry. I understand he was working in the clinch, and he was throwing his little rabbit punches and things like that, and it was effective. He built up his strike count, right? Yeah. He had something like 141 significant strikes versus Woodley's 37 or whatever. I'm not saying he didn't win, and he didn't deserve to win. What I'm saying is, I was not impressed, and I was not excited, and I would not pay.
By Woodley?
I wasn't impressed by Woodley then, but I've been impressed by Woodley the last 4 title defenses.
Fair.
When people said the Wonder Boy fights were uninteresting, I totally disagree. Mm-hmm. I thought those were chess matches, and I was excited to watch them.
That's what I was going to say. What are you looking for? You're looking for the exciting big hits and the big kicks and the flying, the flair and all that kind of stuff, because Bone Jones will give you that. But, more technical fighters, you know what I mean? It might be more exciting for somebody to see the technique. I'd love to see technical stuff. You know what I mean? That excites me.
I watched, I love watching Damian Maia fight. He's a technician. But when Damian Maia fights, Damian Maia looks to finish.
Have to.
How many finishes has Usman had? How many? 1? Maybe? What was his last fight before? Decision over Dos Anjos. What was his fight before that? Decision over Emil Meek.
Yeah.
What was his fight before that? Decision. Yeah. I'm sorry. I would not pay. I wouldn't pay.
More submissions. Want to see more knockouts?
I would like to see him finish. I would like to see him finish. And
how it doesn't matter how. Just you'd like to see a finish.
You finish the way you want. Ground and pound, submission. Mm-hmm. He has power. The thing is, this guy has a lot of tools. He just doesn't fit. You know what he does? He fights safe. And he minimizes risk. Mm-hmm. Which is fine, but
that's actually one of the principles of martial arts.
It is, but then don't ask me to put down $60 for a pay-per-view to watch Usman fight. Fair. Because I'm not interested in that.
Fair. Woodley, because, that's the trade-off for pure martial art or entertaining martial art?
Well, I don't think so, because if you look at the Askren fight, right, what did people always say about Askren? Oh, he's boring. He wrestles. Wrestling is boring. It's on the ground. Was the Ben Askren fight boring?
No,
Hell no, it wasn't.
Do you think perhaps Ben would have done things differently had he been able to? Would he have preferred to wrestle?
But he did. Once he got back up from being knocked down, he started by getting a hold.
Yeah.
You know, he got a hold of Lawler, wore him out against the cage, leaned on him, took him down, and got the choke. But he was progressing. Usman he just held him in one spot and hit him.
Yeah.
Or he got him on the ground and laid on him,
Yeah.
which is fine, but look to finish. I'm sorry, I was not impressed by Usman's performance. I think Tyron Woodley should get an immediate rematch. I really think he should.
Yeah.
He defended the belt 4 times. You know, one of the longest reigning welterweight champions next to GSP and Matt Hughes. And it was a decision victory.
Yeah.
It was a decision victory. It's not like he got knocked out or rolled over.
Fair.
Give him a rematch. Give him a rematch.
I'd agree with that. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Everything that his corner was telling him was like, bro, look, you need to move forward.
You need to wake up.
To bite down. I remember hearing his corner saying, you need to bite down on your mouth guard, point your forehead, and move forward. You know what I mean? And had he done that, he could have turned the tide. You know what I mean? I'd like to see the rematch for that. Perhaps we see a different Tyron Woodley.
I think so. I think if
he played very. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but he played very, very safe.
he was
but not safe enough.
Well, I think he was worried about the takedown, which is why he didn't let his striking go, because he's worried about. Which is funny. You think, well, he's such a good wrestler. Why is he worried about the takedown? He's not necessarily worried about getting taken down. What he's worried about is Usman's going for the underhook. That's how he's going to get him. If you throw your strikes, your hands are up in the air. You let your opponent level change and go down. They're going to lock your arms around you.
Yeah.
So instead of striking, he's got his hands down because he's defending against what he thinks will be a shot. So he can't strike.
Yeah.
Now I'm not justifying it.
No.
That was a poor performance. But I think if the Tyron Woodley who fought Darren Till shows up, if the Tyron Woodley who fought Wonderboy shows up, if the Tyron Woodley who fought Robbie Lawler shows up,
Different matchup.
it's a different matchup. He knocked out Robbie Lawler. He knocked out Darren Till. He smashed
Good right hand, bro.
smashed Wonderboy.
He's got a good right hand.
And I think
He's got an incredible right hand.
I just think that's a different fight. So give him the rematch. Give him the rematch. I think he deserves it.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, he lost with grace as well. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Absolutely.
He
You know
made
what I mean, he's a sportsman. You
right.
know? I like that stuff.
So that's my 2 cents. You know,
I'm gonna say congratulations to Kumaru, Usman. You know what I'm saying? He's a new champion. You know, there's been a little bit of shade thrown on his name from one part of the Musha Show, but not all parts, champ. Congratulations.
well, I did say that he went in there, he executed his game plan,
Absolutely.
and he won the fight. So I'm going to give him credit for that.
Yeah, because I mean, at the same time, this is martial arts and all that kind of stuff. It's also a sport. Like me, you know, traditionally, I'd be saying, hey, you know what? Like this is, you know, if it goes outside of one round, you know, you're giving up too many opportunities to your opponent and this kind of stuff. You know, that's my, you know, defensive self-defense martial artist speaking. You know what I mean? But this is a sport. It's supposed to be entertaining for the fans as well.
Well, it 100% is, right? And not only that, I mean, if Usman wants to be on other cards, if he wants to, you know, get those pay-per-view points and have these people buying the next card he fights on, he can't fight like that.
Yeah.
He can't.
Yeah.
That was Tyron Woodley's problem for the longest time. Everyone said he's boring. No one wants to see him fight. And then Usman comes out and does that.
Yeah.
Which...
Well, they got to kind of understand that a show is being made out of their performance. You know what I mean? So give something to showcase.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes back to what Pedro Munoz said after his fight. He went and asked the people, "Do you like what you see?" So that's someone that, you know, he's putting a show versus someone that is more strict with his type of martial arts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, he's. I think there's a line between being cautious and being technical, and there's a line between playing it safe.
Yeah,
playing it safe and just, you know what? If I just stay on the outside here and I just pop them, I can get the decision. So I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of like cherry picking.
Yeah. Anyway.
When you're playing a different sport.
That's my 2 cents. And let's move to the main event of the evening. So I'm going to let you go first on this one because I went first on the last couple.
All right.
What are your thoughts about the main event? John Jones versus Anthony Lionheart Smith.
Lionheart has definitely got a Lionheart. 100%. He's a sportsman to such a degree. Handled himself with grace. I even liked everything that I saw from the the pre-fight interviews, the press conference. Really handled himself like a gentleman there. And then after the fight, he made no excuses for himself, and I thought that was really good. Through the fight,
I think John Jones actually said it was nice to do a press conference without having to talk shit for once.
Back and forth. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, Anthony Smith, he impressed me with his Lionheart, but I mean, he didn't. I don't know what his game plan was for the fight because he's a challenger. He's challenging, but he didn't come out and challenge Jones. You know what I mean? He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't setting a pace. He was allowing Jones. He even said he did what he said he wasn't going to do, where he allowed Jones to set the pace. Jones played his own game. You know what I mean? And ultimately, Anthony succumbed. I was really impressed by John Jones. I mean, needless to say, but some of the reasons. I saw a lot of traditional, what I would call traditional taekwondo. You know what I mean? It might come from a different style, but he was throwing a lot of straight kicks. Caught Anthony on the jaw with one of the straight kicks. That looked to me like a front snap kick from taekwondo. People called it a teep, but it didn't go straight in like a teep from Muay Thai can. Whatever. There was a couple of backside kicks. There was a jumping backside kick. Just the array of techniques that he used, you know what I mean, and it made it really exciting. You know what I mean? It made it really exciting, and he was very effective. And if you saw the fights, then you know what happened.
All right.
And if they didn't see the fights,
well, I did see the fight.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say I was not impressed by John Jones.
Really?
I was not. I think what happened is so John Jones did that to the Anthony Smith who knocked out Shogun. Mm-hmm. If John Jones did that to the Anthony Smith who slept Volkan Ozdemir, I would be impressed. But that's not the Anthony Smith that showed up. The Anthony Smith that showed up was someone who was starstruck by John Jones.
You think so?
I think there's a difference between watching someone on TV and studying them and then looking across the cage and going...
weathering the storm?
And then going... Holy shit, that's John Jones.
Yeah.
That's possibly one of the greatest fighters of all time. Mm-hmm. It's just like stepping in the ring across from Anderson Silva, right? You just sometimes it becomes too much for you. You can't pull the trigger because you respect them too much. That's what happened when Derek Brunson fought Silva, right? Brunson's a knockout artist.
Yeah.
He barely threw any punches against Silva because he was starstruck by him. And I think, and maybe starstruck is not the right word, but I think people get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
He gave John Jones too much respect, and he didn't pull the trigger, and he really didn't challenge him in any way. So, Anthony Smith, I think I was very disappointed in his performance. Mm-hmm. I will say that
his technical performance.
I will say I was incredibly impressed at him carrying on after the knee. Did not take the easy way out, nor did I expect him to, but he could have.
It's been done before.
And he didn't. Mm-hmm. So kudos to him for that.
Lionheart, man.
And I think he'll be back. I don't think
he's going anywhere.
I think he's going to fight someone else, and he's going to be the Anthony Smith that smashed his way to a title shot. Who should he fight? There's a lot of contenders in that division. I think if you scroll down, let's see. Keep going. Scroll down. So Anthony Smith, you got Thiago Santos who's going to fight Jones next. But I think Anthony Smith would pair well against Corey Anderson. Gustafsson just lost. Mm-hmm. Anthony Smith versus Gustafsson would be a great fight, I think. Sure. I think Anthony Smith versus Gustafsson, that's the next fight to me. One? They both lost to John Jones, right?
That's true. Absolutely.
Why not?
So who would be the...
Yeah, they're ranked number 2 and 4. Why not? Blachowicz just lost. right? So he's not going to fight him. He beat Ozdemir. Anderson's number 7. Why not Gustafsson versus Smith, right?
I think that'd be a good matchup.
Yeah.
It'd be an exciting fight.
Right. So Anthony Smith will be back.
Absolutely. I don't think I think he's got a promising career.
Now for John Jones.
Go in. Go in.
John Jones is billed as one of the greatest fighters to ever step into the octagon. Undefeated.
Touted so.
Undefeated.
Yeah.
Right? Beat DC once. Once.
Yeah.
You know? I think John Jones should have finished this fight. I think the John Jones that is that good, the guy that beat DC, the guy that beat Gustafsson, stopped Gustafsson, stopped DC, right? How do you not finish a half in Anthony Smith?
You get a warning for an illegal blow, and that sets you back mentally, because you get that warning. And like, I've never fought on a stage like this at all.
Right.
But I used to compete in tournaments and that kind of thing. And you get that first warning, or you get a point taken from you for an illegal blow. You're more cautious when you go back in. You are more cautious. And it was late in the fight. What was it, the 4th round?
Fourth round.
So if that happened in the 2nd round, I could see him shaking it off and going back in. But, and I don't want to make excuses, but if you were to ask me, what do you think happened? I think that could possibly have some bearings on John Jones's mentality, his aggression, you know what I mean, his assertiveness after getting 2 points deducted. And I believe the commentators were actually, I think Joe was, oh wow, 2 points. I've never seen this before, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was a thing, you know what I mean? It was definitely a thing.
Okay, fair. If that's your excuse for him not finishing him in the 5th.
Like I said, I don't want to make excuses, but
okay, that's your reason. That's your reasoning.
That's something that you can look at. You know what I mean?
What do you say to the fact that he had him down on his knees against the cage in the 3rd round, just curled up, and he couldn't finish him? He did not pour it on. He did not show the killer. He was covered up. It's not like he was fighting back. Smith was just laying there. Yeah. He could have finished that fight. He should have finished that fight, and he didn't. And to me, if that John Jones shows up against DC, if he shows up against... Hell, if that John Jones shows up against Thiago Santos, he might be in trouble. Because I think John Jones should have finished that fight, and he didn't. And I thought Anthony Smith would be trouble for Jones. I thought he would be because of his power.
I did expect him more.
Because of his power.
Honestly.
He never threw anything, so he wasn't. Thiago Santos has real knockout power.
Yeah.
And I think that should be the next fight. Jones versus Santos. It should. Dana White said it. He's going to try and make it.
Who's ranked 2 right now? Cormier? Or no?
Yeah, but Cormier...
Yeah, so what's... Because Santos is going up, right?
Yeah, so Santos is ranked number 3rd right now.
Yeah.
Cormier is not fighting. Cormier's hurt, and he's waiting for the Lesnar fight. He's not going to fight next.
Yeah.
Just beats Gustafsson. Smith just lost. Lobo lost. Santos is the next fight.
Yeah.
Thiago Santos has real power, and we've never seen John Jones fight someone with that kind of power. He was supposed to fight Anthony Johnson, never did. I think Thiago Santos has a real shot at knocking out John Jones. I really think he does. If he just... You can't let Jones settle.
No.
But Santos needs to... Very first round, he needs to go at him guns blazing. He just does. There you go. Put that up. This guy, since moving to light heavyweight, has just been smashing people. His last 3 fights, all by knockout.
Now, did he come down or did he go up?
So he used to fight at middleweight.
Okay.
And he was weight cutting. So he went from 185 to 205.
Okay. So
and
he was weight cutting.
He was weight cutting. And because of that, he wasn't able to carry that power that he does at light heavyweight now. And I'm telling you, Jimmy Manuwa is no slouch. Blachowicz is no slouch. He's knocking out real contenders. And I think if Santos fights Jones and he just bum rushes him in the first round, just Because you can't let Jones settle. You can't let him get into his rhythm. You can't let him start throwing those kicks.
Well, that was one of the things that I saw in the fight with Smith, right? The first round was all just feints and light jabs. Like none of the punches were loaded. It was just testing. You know what I'm saying? It was just feeling each other.
He's feeling out.
And then the second round,
he's searching for weaknesses.
Exactly. The second round, he was much more animated.
If Santos doesn't let Jones get settled and he just rushes him. Jones doesn't have knockout power. He's never really knocked people out. He breaks them down.
Yeah.
He's not going to knock Santos out. At least there's a very small chance.
I was going to say, don't ever say that.
There's a very small chance.
Right?
But Santos could catch Jones.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that fight. I think that should be the next fight. And like I said, if that John Jones shows up, look out.
The same one that we saw.
The same one that we saw against. Yeah. Look out. I'm not saying he didn't dominate Anthony Smith. He did. Yeah. He did dominate him. But he didn't dominate the Anthony Smith that should have been fighting for the title. No. He dominated an Anthony Smith that didn't show up. Just like Usman beat a Tyron Woodley that didn't show up. That Jones should have finished him.
Absolutely.
But that's my thoughts. I think overall, to me, the big winners on that card was Pedro Munoz and Ben Askren. I think Usman's getting a lot of love. And I think he needs to earn it.
Okay.
I don't think he's earned it yet.
All right.
Show me on your next fight.
That's fair.
Finish it.
Yeah.
And maybe then I'll be on the Usman bandwagon.
Right? He's a new champ, so he's got something to defend.
Hey, Tyron Woodley knocked out Robbie Lawler in the first round to become the new champ. That was a convincing victory. Yeah. That was an impressive victory. Yeah. I wanted to see the next Tyron Woodley fight.
Something like that.
I don't want to see Kumaru Usman fight. I don't. I'm sorry.
No, man, it's all good.
I'm sorry, Usman.
It's all good. African.
But those are my 2 cents. And I think we've kind of gone over. We were hoping for this to be a shorter episode,
yeah,
but
a lot to say.
But there's a lot to say. And we did the little introduction and things like
so
that.
People know who we are next time they tune in. They can
exactly.
They know who they're listening to.
Exactly.
Or they know who they're ignoring.
Well, you know what? I'm sure that I would love to hear comments and feedback.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that the Usman fans out there, the John Jones fans, they might have something to say to me. So you know what? I'm ready.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Tell the Lobo what's going on. Tell the Lobo what's going on.
Let's hear it.
I want to take a second to just shout out Anthony Smith, my uncle. I had an uncle called Anthony Smith, and he's not with us anymore. So God rest his soul. But he was a great uncle. So Anthony Smith.
Very nice. I like that. Yeah. Little sentimental touch.
That's what we do. That's what we do around here.
So as these episodes go on, we'll plan to cover a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So this was just the first one, getting our bearings about it. But we hope that you enjoy what you see. I'm
gonna plug back into the UFC, get more familiar with the fighters and the new age UFC culture, because it's very, very different than when I was watching. You know what I mean?
So sure.
It's
and I've been watching since the beginning. I've been watching since.
So you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like individual style versus 100%, style and all that kind of 100%. Stuff. And it's miles different from what it was. You know what I mean? But, everything evolves.
I just stuck with it a little.
Yeah, you got that discipline.
But if you guys want to comment, you can feel free to do so beneath the video. But if you also want to reach out to us directly, Instagram is the best way.
Instagram, for sure.
Craig Lobo 07. We're going to put the link in the description.
Yeah, at Mr. Luke Robinson. Mr. _Luke _Robinson. We can get this right.
We'll put it in the description.
Yeah,
so
check in the description below. I won't make a mistake down there.
It should make it easier for them.
Easier for me.
But awesome. Thank you very much for watching, folks.
Thanks for tuning in.
And we will see you on the next episode
of the Musha Show.
Over and out.